Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're going to be handling edge cases in user inputs. This very video is an inspiration from a subscriber of mine by the name Kesa the Redbird. He sent me a comment and then he said impressive content. Namdi Enuche, looking forward to your next upload. I tapped the thumbs up icon on your video. Keep up the fantastic work. Your explanation of flowcharts logic was very clear. So I want to say a very big thank you for this comment and thank you for liking and subscribing. Okay. All right. Comments like this keep us going. Okay. Now to the question. See, how would you suggest handling edge cases where inputs might be non-numeric? So take note of the word non-numeric, particularly in a real world application. Okay, so I am going to try to do justice to this question as much as I can. Please feel free to add whatever you think that maybe I may have missed. Okay. All right. So let me try to explain what edge cases mean. So now, what is an edge case? Now, an edge case in user inputs refers to an extreme or abnormal data. When we say abnormal data, we mean usually things that the kind of data that you were not expecting or data that are unusual. Okay. So now we are limiting this very um, explanation to user input through the keyboard. Okay. So now we're referring to inputs that sits at the boundary or outside of the normal range of what that very program expects. Now, edge cases have a way to reveal, how well your program can handle incorrect or unexpected entries without running the risk of crashing or producing the wrong results. Okay. So there are, for us to understand edge cases better, we need to consider certain type of data. Okay, there is one we call the normal data, which is the data that should be accepted. Okay, that your program should accept. All right. So we also have the abnormal data, the one that should not be accepted. That is the wrong data. All right, which is outside of the range of acceptability. And then we have the extreme data. The extreme data, it's a value that is either the largest value or the smallest acceptable value. The largest or the smallest acceptable value, that is called the extreme data. And then we have the boundary data. The boundary data, it's the largest and smallest, so the largest or the smallest acceptable value with their corresponding smallest or largest rejected value. Okay, this may sound a little confusing for some persons, so just hold on. I will explain better with an example. So, just to point out that the normal data is not part of an edge case. Yeah, it's not part of an edge case because edge case refers to values at the extreme. Okay, I will throw more light as we proceed. So let us look at a real life example. But first of all, I want us to consider a numeric input. Remember that the request is for a non-numeric input. So I want us to consider a numeric input so that you can have an understanding of what we're referring to, and then we can now go to the non-numeric input, which is not very straightforward. Okay, but the numeric is straightforward. So this will give you an understanding of the different types of data that I just explained. Okay, so let us examine a social media app that accepts users within the age range of 17 to 80 inclusive. So that means 17 should be accepted all the way to 80. 80 should be accepted also. Okay, so that is the range. If we had said exclusive, that means we're not accepting 17 and 80. Yeah, but this is inclusive. So 17 and 80, they are part of the acceptable range of data. Okay, all right. So here we have it. So this is 17 to 80. and then and every other value in between them. And then you have 81 and the other values, that's 82, 83. You also have 16, 15 and others. Yeah. Okay. So with this very range of data, I would explain what those different test data mean. So for a normal data, the normal data will be the data that is within the range of acceptability, okay, excluding the extreme. So 17 here is the extreme. So 18 to 79, this is normal, okay, this is normal. However, 17 and 80, they are equally acceptable, but we rather refer to them as extreme data, because they are at the edge of acceptability. Yeah, so 17 and 80 can be considered as extreme data. Remember, we're told to get between 17 to 80, so that is acceptable age range. Okay. Now, the other part I want us to see is the abnormal data. Abnormal data. So these ones are the data that should not be accepted. So take note that normal and extreme are accepted. Yeah, but the abnormal data is not accepted. In some texts, you may see them as erroneous. Okay, in some texts, you may see them as erroneous. Now, apart from 16, anything before 16 should not equally be accepted. 15, 14, all the way, and then 81, 82, all of that, they should not be accepted because they are abnormal. They are outside of the acceptable range. Okay, now there is the last category I want us to see is the boundary data. Boundary data. So the boundary data in this case, you can say 17, 16. Why? Because 17 is extreme and the next abnormal. So that makes up the boundary data. Yeah. And then on this other side, you have 80, 81. 80, 81. So that makes up boundary data as well. Since we've understood this clearly, now let's consider non-numeric inputs. So now, still following the same example that we saw. So let's assume the password requirement for the social media app. So remember, the first time was the age. Now we're considering the password requirement. Okay, so let's say the condition is that the length of the password, it must have between 8 to 16 characters long, inclusive. Again, please take note of the word inclusive. So that means it should be between 8 to 16. Okay, so that means 7, 6 should not be acceptable. Anything more than 16 should not equally be acceptable. Yeah. So this one is about the length requirement. Now we have the character set. Okay, let me go back again. This length requirement is can be somehow seen as a numeric input, although it is password. But when you are validating it against the requirements, you are going to consider it like it's a numeric input. Yeah, just getting the length of the password that was entered by the user, and you treat it as if it is numeric. Okay, however, for character set, this one is non-numeric. Okay, so must contain at least one uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, and one digit. So we're using this as our condition, as our requirement for the character set requirement. Yeah. Okay, so here is how you would categorize the test data for this password. So here, for this password, the normal data would be a password that meets both requirements, both the length requirement and the character set requirement. So in this case, you have my par55 word. So if you check, this should be accepted. Yeah, the expected outcome should be that the program will accept it. Why? If you check, it is up to 8 characters long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So it's up to 8. It's between 8 and 16. So this is good. And then it contains one uppercase. It contains at least one uppercase, contains at least one lowercase, and number. So this means that this password meets the requirement. Okay. So now let's look at extreme. Now the extreme has to do with a valid password that meets all character criteria and are at the absolute minimum or maximum acceptable length. You see, so here we're dealing with the length. Yes, it should meet all other criteria. That is the criteria of the character set. But however, the length should be at the extreme level. That is 816. 816. So that way we can call it extreme data. Okay, so if you check this, it meets the character set requirement. Yeah, you check that you can find uppercase, you can find lowercase, you can find numbers. So, and it is up to 8. So that makes it extreme. Again, it should be accepted. Correct? Yeah. So let's also look at the maximum, which is 16. So this password contains 16 characters and it meets the character set requirement. So that makes it an extreme data and then it should equally be accepted. So I hope these things are clear. All right. So let's move to the next part. So here we're considering abnormal or boundaries, because the boundary contains partly abnormal data and partly extreme data. Okay, so if you check this one, for this very category, we say that there are passwords that test the immediate point outside the acceptable boundaries. Immediate point outside the acceptable boundary. So if you check, this is 7 characters. So this is more like a boundary data, yeah, but it's outside because of the length, yeah. And then you have this one again, 17. Okay, 17. Remember that the condition here says 16, okay? 16 maximum. So this is also outside, yeah, because it is longer than what we expect. So both of these cases should be rejected. Mhm. Both of them should be rejected because even if they passed the character set requirement, they failed the length requirement. Okay, the same thing with this. Okay. And now let us look at a completely abnormal data, completely abnormal, that violates one or more of the other rules, whether character set, the type of data entered, or the format. Okay. So this kind of things often result in a particular error. So you need to tell exactly the nature of the error. Yeah, your system needs to be able to report exactly what is wrong. Okay. So for password 123 as an example, you have missing uppercase. So there is no uppercase here. So for that, we should reject it because it violates the character rule. Okay. Then for this second one, my password, you can see there's no lowercase and there's no digit. So it violates the character rule and it should be rejected. Now the same thing with 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way to 8, missing letters. That is uppercase and lowercase not there, then it should be rejected as well because it violates the character rule. And then you have an empty input where the user did not put anything at all and wants to submit the form. So this one should equally be rejected because it has failed the format check, okay, which is what we are going to use to verify the character set rule. So we'll use that to verify this, and then we'll use the range check to validate this one. Sorry. So we'll use the length check to validate this, and I mean the range check to validate the length of the password, and then we would use the format check to validate the character set rule, checking the patterns. Yeah. All right. So I hope this is understood. Okay. So and then you can equally use the presence check. Yeah, the presence check to check if that field is empty. All right. Okay. So I hope this is making sense. Yeah. Okay. So let's practically see an example uh of a program that tries to implement these things that I have just explained now. Okay, so here I wrote a program that would do the validation for the password case that we're looking at here. So from the top here, if you watch, I imported RE. RE stands for regular expression. It's a library that is used to check for patterns. That is the one we would use um, to check for the character set rule. Okay, so it checks for pattern. So you use this regular expression to check for things like email addresses, zip codes, okay, phone numbers, things that have a pattern, attached to them. Okay, all right. So in some programming languages, you may see this as regex. I think Java calls it regex as well. Okay, so you may see it as regex. Regex means reg, regular expression, regex. Okay. Okay. So we would take the password from the user. Okay. So when we take the password from the user, in line 6, we are assuming that the password is correct. Okay. So we're saying that the state of the password is that the password is good. All right. Then, now remember, we did the length check where we're checking the number of characters. Correct? Good. So let's say the length of the character is using the library here, len password. So this will tell us how many characters that are available in the password entered by the user. Then we'll have if length is less than 8. Okay, so this now we're checking if it fails the length check. So if that is the case, we should print out rejected password is too short, less than 8 characters. Okay, here, so once that is the case, we should turn accept to false because we do not accept a password that is less than 8 characters. And then if this uh, passes the test, then we now check for the upper bound. This is the lower bound and here's the upper bound. So we're now checking if it is greater than 16. If that is the case again, we would reject and report appropriately and then uh, let our accept become false, okay, to let us know that the password was rejected. So that's that. Let me equally explain the validation for the character set. So here we're using the regular expression. Please take note of this closely. So this very line 20 where I am using has upper. So these are Boolean. Okay, so it's going to return true or false. So this RE, remember we imported regex, RE there. Good. So we say dot search. So it will search for this pattern. This is a pattern. This is for uppercase. It will search for uppercase if you watch A to Z. Okay. So in the password entered by the user, if it finds an uppercase, then this will return as true. Else, this will return as false. Okay. In the same way, it will equally check for lowercase here, A to Z. If it finds lowercase, it will return true, else it will return false. Again, hash digit, it will check for numbers. So this is for digit. Yeah, D. It will check for any number. If that is the case, it will return true, else it will return false. Okay, so since we've gotten this part straight, now we now need to report appropriately. So we're checking if it is not upper. That means if there is no upper there, please report must contain at least one uppercase letter and turn the accept to false because we have rejected it. And then the next one is to also check for the lowercase. Okay. So if it fails, then we should reject it and report appropriately. Okay. And turn the accept to false because we rejected the password. Now, the last part where we check for digit. If this is not true, okay, then we should equally print and report appropriately that there is no digit there and equally turn this to false. Now, finally, if it passes all of these tests, so we are checking if accept is true. If it is true, that means we've accepted it and this will be printed. Else, this will not be printed. Only these error messages will be printed. So I don't know if that is clear. I hope that is clear enough. All right. Um, so let's proceed. I am going to test this program with our data sets here that we have used. Okay. So let me start by using this one. So this is a normal data, so it should be accepted. So let's try it and see how it works. Yeah. So let me run this. And when I run this, I'm going to drop this. So once I drop this, you see it has told me password meets all criteria. So We will accept it. Why? It has uppercase, it has lowercase, it has number, and it is up to 8. It is between 8 and 16. Okay. Now let us try it with extreme data. Okay. So let me run this again and try this with extreme data. Okay. Once I do this, you see it has told me that it is accepted because it meets all the requirements. Good. So let us equally try it with this one. It should equally accept it. It has accepted it again because it meets all the requirements. Yeah. The length requirement and the character set requirement. Now let's try it with the abnormal data or the boundary data. So let's pick this guy up and then let's run again. Press enter. You see, password is too short, less than 8 characters. So it aligns with what we say it's rejected because it's too short. Yeah. Okay, so let's try this. This one should be too long. So let's run this. Paste it, enter. You see, rejected. Why? Because it is too long. So when you check here, you see, rejected, too long. Okay, so let's try this abnormal data. So let's try this. Enter. You see, must contain at least one uppercase letter. So we are rejecting this because it does not contain an uppercase letter. You can see there. Aha. Character set violation. Missing uppercase. So let's come here and try this again. So you see, so this one violated too. Must contain at least one lowercase, must contain one digit. Okay, so as rightly mentioned here, missing lowercase and digit. Okay, so let's try this again. So when we try this, enter, you see it violated two of them, which is the uppercase and the lowercase. Yeah. Good. And then let's try this empty because I was thinking about it somehow. But I think let's see if our rejects will be able to capture this, even if we didn't do a presence, check. Yeah. Okay. And it is empty. Aha. So it was able to capture it. So either the presence check or the reject check can equally do this job. So it has violated all of the requirements. Password is too short, so the length requirement is violated, and the character set requirement, all of them violated. So our program reported accurately. Okay. So I hope this was explanatory enough. He said the red bird. I hope I did justice to the question. Please feel free to add a thing or two. Comments are highly welcomed. Feel free to add a thing or two. Please do well to like, do well to share, do well to subscribe. Okay. That way this video gets to as many persons as possible. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again on the next one. Bye for now.